Okay, welcome everyone. Unmuted. Happy Sunday. Now is time for coffee. This was perfect for how we just kicked that off. Yeah, Homer, we're on it. We are gonna get through this. Of course, we might be waylaid by the chat, but Homer was curious if we're gonna be able to get through all these episodes in 60 minutes, but we are going to do our best. So yeah, welcome. Happy Star Trek Sunday brunch.
Yes. Hello.
We are back.
There we go.
Yeah.
I couldn't find it on Twitch for a second. Okay, I'm there.
Awesome. We are back. We are ready to go. I have my coffee black, and which is much needed. Hey everyone. Good to see you.
Hello.
So yeah, today we're going to go through the episodes at the beginning of season 5. We're going to do Ensign Ro, Silicon Avatar, Disaster, The Game, and then both parts of Unification. Unification, I think, is going to be the most interesting since this is the first time you've seen Spock in an episode.
In an episode, exactly. The only other time I'd seen him would be in the Kelvin timeline movies, which I love that I can say that now. I had no idea that was a new timeline thing, but now I know it's a thing.
It is indeed a thing. Which, yeah, we'll come back to that in a second. I do have something very witty to say about that. But yeah, so let's just kick it off then with Ensign Ro.
Do it.
And this is another interesting one for someone in your position who's watching TNG before particularly Deep Space Nine. But is this your first exposure to Bajorans?
I think so, yes. I did have a little bit of a confusion moment with them because I'm probably misremembering what she looks like, but wasn't it Seska in Voyager? She's a
Cardassian. She was disguised. Yeah.
I know. But she was disguised as human, right?
Yes. Yeah. I mean, She was one of the Maquis. But yeah, she was Cardassian.
Right. But I thought, I'm remembering her looking, when she's unmasked, I remember her looking like the Bajorans, not the Cardassians. So that was a little confusing. And I was like, what's the difference between them?
Ah, gotcha. Okay. So she basically Seska was genetically altered. Seska is a Cardassian. She was genetically altered to appear Bajoran, to infiltrate the Maquis and spy on the Bajoran resistance. So this whole resistance Bajoran terrorists that they had, that whole plot line, that was the thing that Seska was also.
I see. Okay. I was getting very confused.
No, that's fine. And then, because they kind of allude to it. And again, I think when this aired, there was just allusions to the Cardassians and the Bajorans and all of that. But essentially where we are in the timeline, Cardassia has occupied Bajor, and the Bajorans are kind of scattered to star systems. And,
right. Okay.
That's kind of where that's at. So,
yeah. I mean, I thought this episode, it was an interesting tiptoeing into the discussion of when, if ever, is terrorism a justifiable thing because it's the downtrodden Bajoran camps, right? That's where those stirrings are happening. And it's an interesting discussion. When you are the oppressed, do you is that one of the options that is okay to consider, and so that was one of the themes for sure in this episode that I took away.
Yeah, definitely, because even though they have, so essentially, real quick recap, but yeah, there was the Federation, I think, was it a Federation colony was attacked, and it was kind of implied that it was Bajoran resistance that had attacked the Federation. So they come to investigate it, and they get into the whole Cardassian thing, and then it turns out that Cardassians had staged this attack, and had found someone sort of weak-minded was it Kennelly within the Federation who would just be like, friggin' Bajorans, like, super your fault. You know?
Yeah. So is this like a thing which it just seems that many, many, many Star Trek admirals are either corrupt, really naive, or really morally ambiguous. And I'm including Janeway in that.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
What's up with that?
Yeah, I mean, it is kind of a trope, and you know, that once you become an admiral, you become kind of an incompetent dick. But I think that happens a lot in science fiction, because, you know, like, you have to have a foil for the captains, and the only person who's gonna foil them is their superior officers, you know?
I suppose that's true.
When our heroes are the captain rank, you gotta go one up to be like, curse you.
That's a good point.
So
that is a good point.
That's what I would kind of attribute it to. But
I guess, but it was really funny because Starfleet is this, like, you know, such a, I don't know what I'm looking like. It just seems like you're right. All the captains are the heroes, and then the admirals are like these bumbling fools.
Right.
Anyway.
Yeah. No, it's true. It's really funny. It is really funny. But yeah. So Ensign Ro, I think there's a lot of people kind of have a love-hate relationship with her. For me personally, and I think you'll meet sort of the most prominent Bajoran in Deep Space Nine is Kira Nerys, and she's got kind of a similar I mean, the point in the chat here is whatever the person above you is a narcissist, and what we always talk about too is, like, I forget what that was called, but I certainly used it all the time in middle management, that people rise to the rank of their incompetence. You know, that you reach a point where you get promoted until you're not very competent at the job you have, and that's where you end up landing. And so, yeah. But anyway, so for me, Ensign Ro, I struggle with her because I'm such, like, a lawfully aligned human being that her sort of frustration with the order and the rules and everything, I'm like, just follow, like, you're an ensign, like, fall in line. But I don't know, what about you?
I loved her. I'm on the opposite end. I think she was one of my favorites by the end. And I always appreciate when there's someone like her who's this, like, you know, rebel-minded, almost teenagery, like, I'm not going to follow those rules, and she's being really disgruntled, and she's like, I don't want to be here. But then she's sort of like, she matures through the episode in such a way that she can kind of meet Picard, you know, head on, but in a respectful way. She's like, I'm not going to lose my personality, but maybe this is something I could pursue. And I love that he said he recognized moldable characteristics in her, which was a very interesting way to say it. And I like that. And I just loved her. Yeah, I mean, that moment at the end when she puts her earring on, like, that really reminded me, that was a very personal moment for me, because it reminded me of when I moved from the States to Australia during high school, and the school system there is very different. It's, at least for me, it was uniforms, and you weren't allowed to wear jewelry and that kind of thing. I was very rebellious against that. I hated that. And I would get in trouble for wearing, I had 4 piercings, and I would get in trouble for wearing them. I got detention once for wearing them. Wow. And I was like, I didn't stop wearing them after that, but it just sort of really, I identified with her through that, and I just really liked her character.
Yeah, no, definitely. That's a really interesting story, and I think that I will say I do feel that even though I'm personally not very attached to Ensign Ro, I do think that the story with her not being able to wear her traditional religious, earrings, is that it's a good arc for that episode to show like the importance of giving and taking, and I think, you know, it's interest for me watching this, and I watch Deep Space Nine a lot more, that actually what Ensign Ro is doing is kind of more what they standardize the Bajoran culture. In this episode, they make it seem like she's kind of rebellious and that she's, you know, really one of the few who's fighting to hold on to this, like, not ancient, but traditional way of doing things. But then that becomes kind of the standard. And I wonder if, story-wise, some of that has to do with the fact that they do talk about the fact that Bajor's kind of spread to star systems, and they are in the middle of this occupation. But let's talk about her relationship with Guinan real quick.
Oh my God, loved it so much. That was amazing. That was Guinan's amazing, like, no matter what. But the fact that she just kept pursuing, like, and the way she said things, like, clearly you want someone to be here, and like I just really telling her to her face, like, you're being so like obvious to me right now. You know, like, oh, it's so great. Everyone needs a friend like that.
Yeah, for sure. And I think just that you know, the scenes with her approaching her in 10 Forward, and just, you know, where she just puts it all off and she's like, I don't need any friends, and Guinan's like, well, too late, you know. Yeah, I love that. Brilliant. And then she really goes to bat for her, and changes Picard's mind, that, you know, he's like, oh, okay, you know, I trust your judgment.
Definitely. That was really a fun scene as well, when all she had to say was, she's my friend. And clearly, like, I don't remember if earlier seasons, if we get any information about how Picard knows Guinan, but that seemed to really tell him something, like, because she knows she's selective about her friends, and she's like, okay, I'll trust you, you know.
Yeah, we will get a little bit more into their history a little bit. Nice. That's awesome. The bro true pairing. That's awesome. No, I think that's fair. I think it's a nice balance, and we'll talk a little bit more about this in Disaster, but those unlikely pairings that end up working really well. But before we get to that, we'll move on to Silicon Avatar. So this is the one with the crystalline entity that has come back, that we first encountered with Lore and Data and Lore, back when. And I think this is one of those slower episodes. You know, it's not one I typically would go back and actively be like, oh, I'm really in the mood to watch this episode. But this is the one where the woman whose son was killed, and so it follows Keela Mar. It follows her kind of story arc with this, and I think it's a great acting episode.
Yeah.
So, what were your thoughts on it?
I mean, I agree completely. It was kind of slow in a lot of ways. I wouldn't necessarily go back and watch it again, but the acting I don't know the actress's name right now, but the doctor, that moment when you see her basically go off the rails, and like, it's all in her face. It just, like, this teeny little switch in her eyes.
Yeah.
And you just know she's gone. And I'm not sure she really comes back throughout the rest of the episode. And it's really just beautifully done. It was a really, really interesting moment, a heartbreaking moment to watch, because something changed and she did what she did, which is heartbreaking for the entity, and heartbreaking for her as well.
You mean when in killing the entity? Yeah.
Very,
And I think
emotional.
That's the hardest. That's like that knife that's the twist of the knife, is when, was it Data who says basically, your son would not have approved of this.
Yeah, exactly. Like, oh, that was horrible.
Brutal.
You just get, she clearly just got to that moment where she thought she was doing everything right. And finally, like, it's almost selfish, like, making herself feel better.
Yeah.
And she got so far along that she didn't realize she wouldn't have been making him feel better.
Yeah.
He was too far gone.
it is a good episode, and it's nice to have some of these ones that cycle back. Had you remembered the crystalline entity at all, or
sort of, because I was watching it being like, I swear I've seen this before.
Yeah.
And it was like, yeah. So I remembered a teeny bit, not much, but yeah.
No, it's a good one. It's just a little bit of a slower one, but I do like them. I do like sort of the scenes of them exploring the new planet, and they're kind of it's a good one.
Yeah.
But sorry, carry on.
No, I was just gonna say it just has one of my favorite like Star Trek. I guess I don't know if you call it a trope, but like thing that happens often when they're like trying to communicate, and they get to like. They do their little tweaks and like, oh, now we can communicate with it. And it's like, just those like story plots of communicating with a new species or entity is like really just a fun, like, I love that.
Absolutely. I really love trying to, where you do find species that aren't humanoid, that you're difficult to to communicate with. And
exactly.
Those are fun. That was like that. And kind of the reverse of that was that Nth Degree with Barclay, where they go to the Galaxy Center, and that the aliens made themselves appear human, to be able to communicate with them better. And that was a good one. Hey, Brett. So let's carry on then to Disaster, because this is probably in my top 10 TNG episodes. Wow. I love this episode. This is where they. Is it a quantum filament or something like that? Some technobabbly anomaly that they crash into.
Yeah.
And they crash into it. I mean, it was kind of earthquake territory.
They do, and they don't like. It's what I liked is they don't even like really explain what it is or why or whatever. It was just the catalyst for the groups that were then separated on the Enterprise.
Yeah. And in like brilliant bottle episode type storytelling, they, like you said, it's a catalyst to put characters together that you normally don't see grouped together, which is one of my favorite storytelling techniques, especially when we're 5 seasons in and we know these characters really well. So we had, we had Captain Picard with the kids. We had Crusher and LaForge in the shuttle bay. I think it was a storage bay where they had the plasma fire and the radiation.
Yeah.
Worf delivering O'Brien's baby. And then Counselor Troy and O'Brien on the bridge with Ensign Ro. So
sounds like Clue. Right. Counselor Troy with O'Brien on the bridge with a candlestick.
Totally. With plasma manifolds.
Right.
But let's start with the Counselor Troy and O'Brien one. I thought, and Ensign Ro, it's really just the 3 of them that are left on the bridge together.
Everyone else is dead.
And I thought that this was a nice. It was a quantum filament. Thank you. Awesome score. So this is kind of a neat. Kind of a clue way, right? That they are isolated on the bridge. They can't communicate with anyone. They're trying to figure out what's going on and trying to find ways to fix anything that's going on. It's a cool.
It's intense, and it was fun to see Counselor Troy step into that role, but being extremely reticent to step into that role and clearly very intimidated. She's like, I'm not the right person to be here. But by the end, she asserts some authority and is able to get it done. And I thought her exchanges with Ensign Ro were pretty great.
Yeah.
And so I loved at the very beginning when she realizes she's the next in command, she's like, I would appreciate your suggestions.
Yeah.
Please help me.
Absolutely. It's like, I have the call to make, but you also have like one of your most senior enlisted officers, like in O'Brien, you know, who's that classic enlisted engineer who knows the ropes, but he's not in charge, and that's okay with him. He's just let me tell you all the things.
Yeah.
But then the problem is that Ensign Ro also outranks O'Brien. So when Ensign Ro, because she's an officer, Link, Officer Track,
Yeah.
basically. When she wants to pull the plug, you know, and she's like, we just got to separate.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what we have to do. You know, O'Brien's like, there's going to be more ways to do this. Like, let this. And then you have Deanna Troi, like, kind of balancing those two between them. So yeah, so let's then carry on to the Worf one, because that's in the chat. So good. So the whole birth scene, you texted me while you were watching it.
Yeah, I did. I think I said, I have never loved Worf more than when he was delivering Keiko's baby. It's just like, it's brilliant. Like, so much comedic stuff going on there, and it was like surprise, like threw me off guard how funny it was. I was
yeah, where
this
he's
is
like,
not a good time, Keiko.
Congratulations, you may now give birth.
And the whole thing where he was like, I did this at the academy and it was nothing like this. Kind of for some reason made me think of that part in Prince of Thieves where Morgan Freeman's like, I've seen it many times with horses.
Right. That was absolutely this. And he was so kind of out of his depth, but not, you know, but hiding it really well. And and I love when she's like, has the baby turned? And he's like, what are you talking about?
What do you mean?
The baby turned.
Worf!
The baby needs to turn. He's like, that wasn't in the books. That's not what we do. And it's just such a sweet moment too. And
it's so sweet. It's just brilliant. I loved it so much.
Yeah, it is definitely one of my favorite. Anytime they cut to it, it just put a huge smile on my face. And yeah, I thoroughly appreciated it.
Me too.
Yeah, and now we have Molly O'Brien.
We have a little bit, and the thing is, there were moments during the whole episode where I was like, is this going to really play with my emotions? Is the baby going to die? Like, is Keiko going to die? Somebody's going to die. And it all turned out so nice, and I was like, oh, thank God. But I was really prepared to not be happy.
That's interesting, because I'm so removed from it, because I know the O'Brien story. And even aside from that, but it is really good. I love it. And it's a nice side of Worf that I think they're starting to explore his character more. You know, we've had little flashes of it, but then after the the Klingon episodes at the beginning of the season, and then now putting him in a more comedic, helping a friend genuinely, you know, it's not like he bails on the situation. He's there and he's trying to help. It's really sweet, and I love it.
That's the best.
Yeah. And then we also had Geordi and Crusher in the bay with there's a plasma fire and there's high radiation dosage, and they're trying to figure out what to do. This one stresses me out. This is a good
This was stressful. Yeah. I mean, as she's describing what's going to happen when they open the doors, I was like, goodbye.
Yeah.
I'm going to leave now.
Yeah. And the way they it's funny because we see, I've just put my little science hat on for a second, but we do see, you know, let's open it to space to put out fires and to, you know, do all those sort of things. And it has to varying degrees of realism, you know, that we don't, you know, you've exposed a huge chamber to the vacuum of space, but you still have a lot of air rushing past you. So, you know, it's like we saw that in Aliens, where she opens the hatch and to let the alien out. And then we saw it in, we've seen it in Battlestar Galactica, and then but one of the things that I think that they forget, the right thing is that there's a lot of air that's rushing past you, so you're not like immediately exposed to the vacuum of space. You just are in like a high wind tunnel. But then when Crusher says don't breathe out, that's absolutely right? Because you wouldn't be like, once you've expelled that air, you don't have any air to breathe in, and whatever's rushing past you is not, you're not going to be able to get any in your lungs. And it happens pretty fast, you know. They're out of it in the time that they said they'd be out of it. And she almost doesn't make it to the panel, and
so much tension. It was like, once she hit it, I was like, oh, thank God.
Yeah. We can relax now.
That's over.
Yeah, exactly.
Take me back to Worf, please.
Right.
Or Picard.
Yeah. And so they put out the plasma fire and they're okay. And then yes, we have to talk about Picard and the kids, because this is as much as I love Worf and O'Brien in this, and Worf and Keiko, the Picard and the kids is freaking adorable and hilarious.
Amazing.
It's so good.
It's amazing. I mean, on the one hand, of course, it was kind of like, oh, that was predictable that he would be stuck with the kids because he's so disgruntled at like having them there and being very Picard-like, you know.
Yeah.
But then it was brilliant to watch him like go through the whole gamut of just being Picard and like kind of being hard on them, and then like just as it becomes more clear to him, I suppose, that things are really not going well anywhere else on the ship, he realizes he's going to be there for a little while, and when he assigns them the officer roles, it was so cute. And the fact that he assigns the young girl the first officer, like, that was so amazing.
So good. So good. I love, just before he gets into that role, when they're all crying in the turbo lift and he's just like, stop crying. Like,
that was so cute. So that would be funny. Me. Stop crying.
Just stop crying.
Just stop.
But yeah, once he kind of embraces where he's like, all right, we gotta figure this out, and he kind of helps talk them through the stuff, and then when I love too when he tells them, you gotta climb, my ankle's broken, I can't go, and the kids are like, we've had a confab, and it's all of us or none of us. We all go or we all stay here. And he's like, okay, you know that's called mutiny, but I'll go with it.
Yeah, it was so cute.
So cute. I love too, one of the things that made me laugh so much, and yeah, that's true. Accurate. But I love when the little kid is he's like, so what did you guys do for your science fair projects? And the youngest kid is like, I grew radishes in special dirt and they came out weird. Oh my gosh, I was like, that is my favorite. That is such as someone who has judged elementary science fairs, I'm always like, you go, kid, you had no idea what you were doing.
Well done.
Yeah. But I love it. It's so
brilliant. And then at the end, when the girl's like, she answers when he's like, I forget what Picard says, but something number one, and she's like,
yeah,
and then whoops.
Says you've got the helm number one. She's like, aye.
And then that little smile that he gives her, like, so good.
So good. They are so cute, and I love just Picard being uncomfortable with children is really funny, and his little growth of just like, still am not wild about, he's still uncomfortable when they come to give him this plaque, and he's like, well, this is really nice. I don't know how to completely react.
But thank you. Yeah,
but thanks. It's so
I'm really uncomfortable around kids too, generally, and so it's like very much identifying.
Yeah. And it's legitimately terrifying when they're climbing out of the turbo lift and the thing drops beneath them, and then he has them all sing Frere Jacques, which is still stuck in my head. So
right.
Yeah.
Thanks for that, TNG.
Yeah, right, exactly. Dr. Ina, I think is the name, in here had the point about Ro still having the militia tendencies of cut losses as soon as possible. I think that's exactly right. Like that is what she was thinking, is just like, cut your losses and move on. That we have to just save ourselves. We're getting out, and everyone's screwed. So let's save us as much as possible, I think.
Right.
Is the mindset. And that's not only just sort of a militia thing, but, that's sort of a junior officer mentality of like, I have some decision authority, or I'm close to the decision makers, and just cut it, and we're going to go. And as opposed to Deanna Troi, who was kind of like, well, let's hang in as long as we possibly can.
Which is, at least from what I've seen so far of Star Trek, kind of the Star Trek way. Like, we need to satisfy every single solution here before doing something that's more like Ensign Ro's idea.
Yeah, absolutely.
It was the Starfleet thing to do.
Yeah. So it's such a good episode. It's so funny. It's so cute. So cute. Yeah. I love so many moments in it, and it's just got a lot of good character development, and it is a nice development for Deanna Troi, because I think we haven't really got to see her character grow that much yet.
Not recently,
yeah. So it's a good kind of jumping off point to see a little bit more from her now. And
definitely
grow her as a character. So let's move on then to The Game, which is another sort of classic episode, and this is the one where they all get their, now we call it augmented reality devices. They're walking around with these eyepieces on, and everyone gets addicted to it, and it's kind of a creepy Invasion of the Body Snatchers style episode. And I think the first note I put in here was that this episode seems way more relevant today than it was in the 90s. And
way more. Yeah.
So yeah, what did you think about it?
I liked this episode. It was definitely kind of creepy. The second she put the thing on, like, Clockwork Orangeness going on there, I was like, A, why is he okay with this? This looks really invasive. And B, this is not going to be good.
No.
Yeah, and definitely, yeah, you're absolutely right. Like, this really seemed a lot more relevant today than it would have back then. And back then it probably would have been so much more science fiction-y.
Yeah.
Like, that will never happen. And now we have these things that we can put on to,
escape
do
reality.
Stuff like that. Yeah.
And
all I wanted to do while I was watching the episode was, I was like, okay, after this is done, I'm going to put on my Oculus and play some games.
Right. Yeah. It's really interesting. And we do get Wesley Crusher back. So we have a teenage Wesley Crusher.
We do. And we have baby Ashley Judd.
Yeah. So she did actually first appear. This character's name is Robin Leffler. And she first appeared in Darmok briefly.
Yes.
But this was like Darmok was Ashley Judd's first gig. Like,
I definitely IMDb'd. I was like, wow.
It's crazy.
He's so cute.
But, I think they've done a great job with evolving Wesley too.
Yeah.
That he going and trying to save the day doesn't seem as far-fetched as it did in the beginning seasons.
Very true. Yes.
Yeah. It seems reasonable that he starts to piece it together, and that him and Robin kind of figure out ways to, like, pretend that they're wearing it and escape it. But yeah. Oh yeah, kind of like Naked Now. I love that episode. That's an original series.
Okay.
But yeah, they
I was like, what?
But this is a good episode. I always love Invasion of Body Snatcher storylines, where, like, love, hate, but like in that, cool, creepy sort of way.
Yeah.
And, where they're all pinning him down and putting the eyeballs in, and who can you really trust? And
right, exactly.
Yeah.
They're fun. They do make me deeply uncomfortable.
Yeah.
But they're fun. But okay, wait, this one. So, first of all, why would Worf even play this game? And how would it affect him like this?
Worf specifically?
Yeah, like, he's Worf. Like, somebody offering him a game, he'd be like, Klingons don't play games. Like, that's what would happen.
Yeah.
So
that is funny. And you have to ask about the Klingon physiology with the brain, because they did go into some detail about where it was targeting in the brain. That it was like the prefrontal lobe cortex, something brain thing,
something
brain
prefrontal.
area.
Yeah.
pleasure area and also the reasoning area of the brain.
Yeah.
And unexpected bagel, do not worry about your wall of text, because I think you're right. Like the futurism aspect of it, I think is valid, and all of these little hints, you know, in a lot of Star Trek things like video chatting, like what we're doing now was a special effect in the original series, you know?
Exactly.
And so a lot of it's just not so much or not so much if, but when, you know?
Yeah, that reminds me of one of my favorite Eddie Izzard sketches when he's like, you remember those? He was talking about science fiction stuff. He's like, those sliding doors in Star Trek,
Yeah.
We've got them now. That's about it.
Exactly. That's so funny. Yeah, that's so true. But you know, I do love this. I love this idea. I think the counterpoint I would say to Worf being influenced by it is just the fact, as DTG said, that there's a lot of species, and it seems like these Qatarians who were spreading this, you know, and they were like, okay, now you're gonna go to this space station and you're gonna go to this, and yeah, it is a TNG bathrobe. this is my brunch time. That they would have it adapted to whatever species they were, and maybe that, all right, we can get super into it, but maybe that is what the eye scanning was doing, is like, what species is this, and then calibrating the game to attack that particular species.
That explanation works for me. That's the only way I could imagine Worf possibly.
Yeah, it's so funny though, because you know, I did this thing. I actually need to put it on my YouTube if it exists somewhere. But I was a guest with myself and Muhammad were a guest on Andrew Heaton's channel, and we did like a round robin, just put our ideal crews together, and we were talking about security officers and how I kind of made the argument. It's a little controversial, so strap in. But that Tuvok he's a great security officer, because he very little gets past Tuvok compared to like Worf. Like usually Tuvok is the one who's like, stuff's gone weird. Y'all aren't behaving like you're supposed to, and I'm gonna rebel and not do any of this while I figure it all out. Like that was 100% Tuvok's personality. And Worf is a little less so. He comes with more brute strength, and he's a badass in his own right, but not he's astute, but I would say not nearly as astute as Tuvok was.
I think that's fair.
Please don't hate me.
There were many moments with Tuvok where I was like, why is he in that role? I don't understand. But there were many others where I was like, oh, okay, he's really using his strengths right now.
Yeah, he's an incredibly observational person, where he's just like, something's not right. But yeah, I really, this is a good episode. It's got good suspense to it. It's got, like I said, that creepy invasion of body snatchers. I think one of the best scenes is when Wesley comes in to talk to Picard, and he's just like, something's not wrong. I've done the research. This is wrong. This is wrong. This is wrong. And Picard goes, okay, you're right. Thank you for doing this. I'm going to instigate a study and we'll figure this out. And it's like, whew, okay, Dad's on the case. Like, everything's going to be okay. And then he walks out and Picard puts the thing on, and you're like,
I saw that coming the second Wesley walked in. I was like, because the way the camera was set up, and it was like behind his head and stuff.
He spins around like once.
I was like, he is 100% already gone. Like,
but then he has that calming dad voice, and you're like, oh, maybe he's okay.
Maybe he's okay. Maybe he's just pretending.
Yeah, but no. But it was it is a very nice Wesley save the day, and he's got some nice, cute moments with Beverly, where she's like, even though she is possessed and she's not really her true self, but still being in that mom mode, where he's like, Mom, I've got a date I gotta go to.
Yeah.
And she's like, who are you dating? Why don't you hang out with me? I thought we would get some time together while you were here. And it's like, oh, it's Mom.
Yeah.
100% so being back from college and wanting to meet up with your buddies. And, yeah. So
100%.
Good times. All right, so let's move on then to Unification. big two-parter. This is a big,
there was
at times loquacious two-parter episode.
There was a lot.
So this is the one where Spock comes back, which is really the main point of this two-part episode, but that the Federation suspects that Spock has defected to the Romulans, that he's gone rogue, which would make it look bad for the Federation. And Picard has to go investigate and go infiltrate. So I really want to know your thoughts on this as someone who hasn't seen TOS.
Yeah. Well, one of the first things I thought was they really sprang to that conclusion pretty quickly. They're like, Spock has defected. There's no other possible explanation that he could be down on Romulan. Like,
right.
That was very strange to me. But yeah, I mean, I was excited to see Spock. It was like, felt very, it was a moment for me. And yeah, I mean, there's I think a lot of background stuff, like Romulan, Vulcan background stuff that I was probably getting a little of this going on, but the whole the Spock story was that, you're right, that was like the crux of it, was really about him and his father, who I don't think I met, but Picard keeps saying that they did a
Sarek?
Mind meld. Yeah, I
think, what episode was that in? It might have been a while since we watched it. It was really an emotional storyline. Okay. Yeah, there's an episode called Sarek. It's in season 3. So okay. You have seen it. Technically, you've seen it. I
did not remember.
Okay.
I did not remember.
Yeah.
So I did. Okay. I definitely did not have an emotional connection to him. It was, heartbreaking to watch, of course, but I didn't feel much connection to him, and
because we see him die.
Yeah, we do.
Yeah.
And I was during the scene when Picard goes to see him. It was basically to look like Vulcan dementia was setting in, and they also said something interesting. His wife said his emotions are taking over.
Yeah.
Which I thought was really an interesting idea, that Vulcans, part of the physiology I always thought was they had not fewer emotions, but more like they just didn't have as much range there. Right. But this seemed to say that it was almost a suppression of emotions that are now bubbling up. Like, that was really interesting.
Yeah, I think they definitely allude to that a lot, and it's been a bit muddled in terms of the storytelling, because in the original series, when you had Spock struggle with his emotions coming out, it was usually implied as being like that was his human half that he had been suppressing, but then they have alluded to the fact that, like, Vulcans do spend years suppressing their emotions, and I think we saw that a little bit in Discovery as well. And some of the subsequent ones, they do talk about the fact that Vulcans do have emotions, it's just they're...
Yeah, and actually I did remember a few things from Tuvok stories in Voyager where we saw some glimpses of his childhood, and there was some talk about that suppression thing, but
right.
Yeah,
it was really good. And I think I agree with Ken there that we did get to know Sarek better in Discovery, which made it a little bit more impactful. But I always liked the Mark Leonard Sarek, who's the same guy that played it, in the original series. So I've always been kind of close to him. So it's interesting. And we did kind of see, as Mikhail said, that they oppressed the emotions because it was too strong. I think the times that we do see that are like the Pon farr, right? That you remember how much. And then when Tuvok, I'm on a Tuvok kick today, apparently.
Okay.
But, when he declines in Year of Hell, was it Year of Hell? Or no, when he declines in Endgame, like when they go back and fix the time.
Right.
That his, that there is a lot of stuff that they have.
Yeah, and Spock goes through some of that in Discovery, right? He's like in that room with the chalk and stuff.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. So, it's been, so it is interesting. To kind of explore it a little bit more. And Sarek, I love Sarek personally. I have to look up. Someone's gonna know what the book's name is, but it's not up here with me. No, it's downstairs. It's either Spock's Heart, I think is the name of the book, or Vulcan's Heart. Spock's World. We got there. But there's some good stories with Sarek and Amanda that have always been canon in my brain.
Gotcha.
And so I've always really liked Sarek. So it is hard to see him die, and especially because we have explored him more in Discovery. So
yeah, I
don't know what you're talking about, Todd. The bridge's bookshelf is that way. But yeah, it's a good one.
Yeah.
So anyway, sorry, carry on with your other thoughts in it.
Let's see. So there were moments. There's obviously Picard and Data down on the surface, but I really felt like, in a lot of ways, this was Riker's episode.
Yes.
Like,
hard agree.
I love that.
Yeah, hard agree. I think I love Riker. I love Riker, and
I'm right there with you, guys.
Because he was always one of my favorite characters way back when I started watching Next Gen. I always loved him. And it was episodes like this that remind me how much I love Riker. He's so funny and so genuine. Like when they have the shipyard guy on the bridge with them, and he's like giving Deanna a hard time. Riker's just fully amused, and he starts ordering. He's like, "Helm, go to heading whatever," and Riker just kind of is like, and just kind of goes, "Yeah, what he said, sure." Like,
right.
It's so genuine. I genuinely love Riker.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
much.
It was great to see him like clearly stretching his captain legs, but just doing it in the Riker way, and it was really fun to watch.
Yeah. We love him. It's
We
so
do.
good. And I do think they did have some great humor moments when they were down in that bar and they were like, "Sir, there's a fat Ferengi who just walked in." And then when Worf requests the Klingon opera.
Yeah. Well, that was like really random. And then he like sings it for like less than a minute, and then we go to the next scene. I was like,
so funny.
It was really okay.
And I love too how genuinely like Klingon opera is not pleasant to listen to.
Right.
Like they do a great job of that. They've not, it is supposed to be an alien.
Yeah.
Thing.
100%.
But just transition real quick before I forget, with Spock's entrance did make me laugh because he comes out from a low lit cave, to impact lighting. And it's exactly his entrance in the Kelvin movie.
It's the same exact entrance. Yeah. That's exactly what I thought. And for a second I was like, is this the moment, like, because he comes back and forward or time or whatever in the Kelvin movies. I was like, is this the same moment? Like, are they doing a thing? No.
No, but I think in the Kelvin movies, it was a nice homage to, of like, well, and I think for most storytelling in general, when you do have a big character cameo appearance, you do want like a grand entrance.
You do.
And that is a grand entrance. So I love it.
I'm so glad that I wasn't imagining that.
Yeah. No, not at all. It's brilliant. But a fun fact, I did actually look up about this, that this episode aired a couple of weeks before the 6th film, Undiscovered Country, which is an original series movie. So this is like they're overlapping. Original series movies are coming out as Next Gen is airing, but they're set in different timelines. And there's a few stories behind it. But essentially, so Undiscovered Country is about the negotiation with the Klingons and the Federation. And so in this episode, when Spock says, well, you remember how, like, or I think with Picard, anyway, Picard and Spock have the conversation about how Spock was instrumental in negotiating a peace, like, with the Klingons. That was supposed to be like a trailer, essentially like a teaser for the movie that's coming out in 2 weeks, where they negotiate the peace with the Klingons. So,
so like you remember the thing that hasn't happened yet, but will happen in a movie that happened before.
That hasn't come out yet, but that you'll get to see in 2 weeks. Right. Yeah, it's crazy and really entertaining. And apparently there was like a lot of negotiation about his cameo and his salary and like how much, because he was an executive producer on Undiscovered Country. So it was like, you know, I'll do it for less if we kind of use this as an opportunity to promote the movie that I'm working on, that I'm going to be in. So just crazy. It's crazy. It's so funny. Oh
my goodness.
You'll like Undiscovered Country too. That's a great movie. It's a great movie. It's one of the even number ones. So
okay.
I stand by that numbering. But yeah, so that's kind of just a fun tidbit. I do love too, I mean, I don't know if you're gaining an appreciation for the insanity that is the Klingons, but the fact that they're like, oh, we've got a problem with Gowron. He's rewriting all the history.
It's funny. I saw your note about that on the doc that we're using, and I don't remember what happened there. Was that the very beginning of Unification I?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so that was in Unification I, and right before, because then sort of to get Picard and Data to the Romulans, you know, they use the Klingons to get through. And so they're like, we're going to need the Klingons' help. And they're like, that's going to be a problem because Gowron has been telling everyone that he was responsible for all the stuff you did.
Right.
And
right.
So there's not a ton of like, and the Federation didn't help at all, and it was all Gowron who did all of it. And you're like, Gowron.
But do we like Gowron? We like Gowron, right?
Well,
or
when it comes to, he's better than Duras.
Okay.
But he's just Gowron.
He's like, just a politician.
Yeah, just a power-hungry, difficult Klingon. That it's like when you get close to liking him, like last week when we were talking about him, when you're like, oh, he did the right thing, like he's being an okay leader, then they're just immediately like, no, he's just being difficult again. And yeah, it's the crazy. I mean, you always remember him. It's so funny because he stands out so much because of his crazy eyes.
Yeah.
That you never forget. You don't get them mixed up, right? It's just brilliant sort of makeup and character design that anytime Gowron shows up, you're like, oh, I know you. You're that difficult one. And so it's just so funny to have that throwaway line of, he's just rewriting you guys out of our history. So you don't get any credit for all that stuff you helped with.
Hilarious.
I do also love the scene of Picard and Data on the Klingon ship when he's showing him around and he's like, he's trying to, you know, be like, you soft Federation will, you know, be ready for pain. And Picard's like, I like pain. I like Klingon. And he's like, you will sleep in your bed Klingon style. We do not soften our bodies with, you know, cushions on our beds. And Picard's like, I prefer sleeping that way. He's like, and you will eat the Klingon food. We have gach ready for you. And he's like, I like Klingon food.
That was so great. He was like, please just go away. And
he's like, dude, this is now my first rodeo. You're not going to scare me. Like, I was the arbiter. Like, I can handle my Klingons.
Totally.
So Unexpected Babel said, you got to ask O'Reilly about the Gowron crazy eyes and asked how dried out his eyes got. And it was difficult to do. Yeah.
I can only imagine, like.
Yeah, because he doesn't
he doesn't
like that.
Blink.
Yeah.
That would be crazy.
So
oh my
funny.
God.
So funny. The other sort of great humor in this episode was when Picard's trying to sleep and Data's just hovering behind him, staring off. Oh, it wasn't difficult. Okay, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Interesting. That, I mean...
That's even more interesting.
Yeah, that's even more interesting, because fair play to him.
Seriously.
But
yeah, when Picard's trying to sleep and Data's just standing there, and it's like... It's one of those things where he wasn't making any noise. He wasn't breathing. Like, he was just literally standing there, and Picard was turned away. But you can still feel the presence behind you, and you're like,
yeah.
What are you doing?
Yeah.
I wasn't doing anything, sir. Well, stop.
Stop
doing what you're not doing.
That was so good. It was so
really funny.
It was so funny. And then just to kind of close things out with this one, it was a really sweet scene, and I think that they've, over the many iterations of telling Spock and Sarek's story and everything, that I think their relationship has gone a little back and forth canonically, and some people, have different feelings about Sarek and Spock, but I think what this episode was trying to come across is that, Spock desired a lot more from his relationship with Sarek than he got. Mm-hmm. And I think that has kind of held up. And so when Picard mind melded with Spock and was able to kind of, I guess the way I read it was that was the implication, that he was able to see how much Sarek loved him and cared about him. And it's just a really sweet sort of final shot.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, I mean, we didn't get into the guy who betrays betrays Spock, the Romulan politician dude.
Yeah, like the one who called him there.
Yeah.
Romulans, man.
I was suspecting that he was not necessarily on the up and up, but also there's that kid that kept coming back and forth, and I was like, I feel like he's somebody to watch.
That was the one that had the Vulcan toys?
Yeah. I was like, you are a spy. You're but maybe not.
Yeah. I thought, because it is interesting. It sounded like it was nice to see a layer of Romulan culture that did desire to be less Romulan, in the sense of, like, we do have brethren in the Federation,
right,
and one day we will be united.
Right,
is interesting. But
and we got Tasha. We got non-Tasha Yar again.
Yeah. Romulan Tasha Yar, Sayla. Yeah, we got her back. She died, right? She dies in this. Didn't they leave her body behind?
They don't explicitly show that, but I think she does. Yeah, thank goodness. I don't like her.
We're off. So we're not off Denise Crosby, but we are definitely off Romulan Tasha Yar. That's funny. So Unexpected Bagel said that Datan, that kid, becomes the leader of the Romulan Republic in the Star Trek Online game. That's awesome. I respect that. That's really cool. That's a great fact.
Nice.
Yeah, it is kind of funny. We didn't really talk much about the plot, but it all got fixed. It's all fine. Yeah, of course, Sayla was behind trying to manipulate her little puppet strings, but she's a good character, but just Romulan.
Yeah,
just being Romulan. And it's interesting too, having seen Picard and having seen the Star Trek Kelvin movies, that it is that you do get you do sort of see those seeds of Spock trying to save Romulus with the supernova, and then him and Nero, obviously, and then going through the black hole, and then the Kelvin timeline happening. But they've planted those seeds for him to kind of want to help Romulans in the same way that Picard is. So I think that they've planted the seeds for both of those storylines here, which I think is really cool. So,
it's interesting.
So yeah, I know. I really want to play Star Trek Online, and I try it sometimes, but I don't do a lot of multiplayer games. I do have it downloaded. One day, I'll let you all know if I'm streaming it, but if you think I'm bad at driving the Mako around, you haven't seen nothing compared to me trying to pilot a ship in a multiplayer game. I know my strengths and I know my limitations. But anyway, so yeah, you got to see Spock in an episode.
I did. Yeah, big moment.
Awesome. Any other takeaways from this? We can wrap up. We're at the hour. No, this was a fun grouping. Yeah. I'm so enjoying season 5. Good. I'm glad.
Yeah.
Me too. It's been fun to go back and watch these. And yeah, some of them are really gems. There's a lot of great episodes in season 5. So we will continue on. We'll let you all know kind of what chunk we decide to get through this upcoming week, and we'll be back next Sunday.
Yeah.
A couple sort of housekeeping things on Tuesday. See, we got through. On Tuesday, our episode club, we're going to be discussing Star Trek IV, The Voyage Home, the one with the whales. I'm going to maybe try to do a watch party on my Twitch channel before that, so keep eyes peeled for that. I have never tried it before, but we'll try to figure out how that works. And then we're going to do astronomy on Friday, and then Samantha and I will be back doing this again next Sunday. So thanks again, everyone.
See you there.
Awesome. All right. Yep. Have a good week, everyone. Live long and prosper.
Yep.
Bye.